Hey everybody, welcome to another Coalition of the Sane, hashtag COTS. And today we're honored to interview Tara Setmayer. Most of you know her from the Lincoln Project, but you have seen her on CNN, MSNBC. You've seen her on just about every major network. She's also a member of multiple university organizations that are absolutely committed to saving democracy. We're going to talk about her past, how she was pretty much raised Republican, and really her slow evolution away from the GOP and understanding that the Republican Party had left her. It's an exciting conversation. I can't wait to share it with you. So let's have some fun. Let's get down and dirty, and let's get to work. Thank you for coming on.
Of course.
It's weird being on this side with you. You know what I mean? Because we hang out and you come to my distillery and you drink with me and you've interviewed me a couple times. This is a privilege and an honor to be able to interview you. And we've already, and I'm just very excited that you're here. You know that because I love you.
And it's my pleasure. Likewise.
And plus, you're sort of a charter member, like an original, like an OG member of the Coalition of the Sane, right? And so that's why I wanted to talk to you so badly, because I know your bio pretty well, but I think people might want to know, and because I want you to do a lot of the talking here, obviously, they might want to know why you can talk to the movement so eloquently and you're so incisive in your comments is because you were in Republican politics for so long. And I don't know if you wanted to give a really quick bio because you were on the Hill. You did incredible work with individuals at the executive level. You've been at the highest levels on the Hill. And now with your incredible background on what you do with universities, your involvement with so many activities to save democracy, ruminating about your past and what you've done, you can go into it a little bit. Do you think that's what gives you such a measure of confidence when you go into these discussions and when you go on the attack, is that you know the GOP so well?
Yes. And in Denver, you know how much I love you. And I'm so happy to see you have this platform as well, because people need to hear from you. And I think the reason why you and I get along so well and why our families are friends and everything is because we are simpatico in our realness and authenticity when it comes to what's happening today, what's at stake. And we've both come from a place of wanting to serve. You know, you served our country honorably in the military. You went and became a member of Congress. You continue to serve even after all of that because you recognize, when you didn't have to, because you recognize how important saving our democracy is from the evil forces of authoritarianism that the Republican Party has now become the vessel for. It's just outrageous. And that's, we can argue, some of us, over where that started or how, or whether Trump was a symptom or the cause. I just think that Trump has revealed a lot for a lot of people, including me, which is why I'm no longer in the Republican Party and left it as of November 5th, 2020, after Donald Trump refused to concede the election. My background in Republican politics, I mean, it made sense to me. I grew up in New Jersey. I'm a very proud Jersey girl. And so I always joke that I'm incapable of bullshit because our Jersey DNA just doesn't allow for that. And it's just been a natural progression for me that when I see something is not right, to speak up. My mom was a single parent. She had me at 21. She was in show business in New York and theater and all of that. And so my mom and I are very, very close. And she always taught me from a very young age to never be afraid to speak up and get involved. And so that, again, has been a blessing and a curse throughout my life. Sometimes that gets me in trouble. But for the most part, it's been rewarding because I've used the gifts that God has given me, the gifts of communication, my compassion for people, my desire to want to serve, to make this country better, that pursuit of happiness, opening up those opportunities for more people. That's always been my motivation for being involved in politics. Why I came to college, I went to George Washington University in DC in 1993, and kind of the rest is history from that point on. I got involved in Republican politics very young as a high school student, a senior in high school. I was vice chair of the College Republicans at GW. So I came up in the 90s when Republicans took back the House for the first time in 40 years, the Republican wave, the Newt Gingrich, Dick Armey, Tom DeLay time under Clinton. And I mean, it was a wild time. But that's where I cut my teeth in Republican politics. And I actually believed the ideology. And through all those years, I used to always say that I was a conservative first. So conservatism made sense to me. The Jack Kemps of the world and people who looked at, right? Like Jack Kemp was a huge inspiration for me. He was the Housing and Urban Development Secretary under Bush, Bush 1. He was also a football player, and which is where he became famous for most people. But like, he used that to go into neighborhoods that would not have necessarily been receptive to Republican orthodoxy. They were like, no way, because Republicans had a kind of a bad reputation for some things. And I get it, right? The party itself has always been flawed. But I looked at it like, but it's the ideology behind that made sense to me. The messengers may be fallible, and we've seen that, but the worldview was something that made sense. So, smaller government, lower taxes, strong national defense, robust foreign policy, empowering individuals, getting the government out of your business, those kinds of things made sense. That's unrecognizable now, right? Like
that ship sailed.
That's long gone. That's unrecognizable now. But all those things that's what animated me. And I come from a very blue collar family. My grandfather was captain of the police department in my hometown of Paramus, New Jersey, which I'm very proud of being from, Bergen County. But he was the captain of the police department there. He was on the force for 40 years. My family still lives on the same property that my great grandparents from Germany came over through Ellis Island and settled in Paramus, New Jersey in 1924. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. He served on our volunteer fire department for 71 years. So I come from that type of environment. I'm the first person to go to college in my family. So I'm not some elitist muckety muck that looks at these concepts of democracy and these esoteric things as like some type of privilege. No, I'm a regular blue collar person that loves America and is blessed to be here and wants to make sure other people recognize why this is still the greatest country in the world, despite where we're going. And as the Republican Party started to drift away from that and become indecent and fascist now at this point, for God's sakes, isolationist, immoral, hypocritical, all of those things, and anti-Constitution, right? All of those things, I'm going, what? So for me, it was natural to call them out, right? Like, I was in Republican politics for 27 years.
It's unbelievable.
I knew, right? I knew what Republicans claimed they believed and the policies that Republicans claimed they were for. And I was all for it, most of them. But I wasn't afraid to call the party out when I felt that they were being hypocritical, even before the Trump era. So that made me
that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yes, even before that, I used to be like, what are you guys doing? Like, no. And so people respected me. I got a reputation of being a straight shooter very, very early on. And whether you agreed with me or not, people respected me because they knew I was coming from an honest place.
Well, you're an ideological brawler. I've always loved that about you. If there's, I got to tell you, Tara, if I'm ever in a bar fight, I want you there, right? And my
yes,
but, and your husband too.
I've got a good right hook too.
I love that. I love that. But so you talk about November 5th, 2020, which really struck me because I really think the party sort of left you. I would say you didn't leave the party.
True.
I think that happened to me too. I went on Jake Tapper and said, I'm out. I'm enough of this crap. It's just so insane. So November 5th, 2020, but I got a feeling, and I want to ask you this because sometimes I try to surprise people. When was the time? Is there a specific time that you can remember, or a period of time, or a specific event where you're like, things have gone so sideways, I can't do this anymore? Even before November 5th, 2020, I know that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, but I know you pretty well. And I have a feeling that this migration from the GOP and looking at the crazy that was happening started well before November 5th, 2020. So was there a time where your sanity meter got pegged, right? Where, you got hit right in the frickin' feels, or the day your medulla oblongata exploded, right? What was that day, right? Yeah. Where you're like, holy shit, things have gone sideways. And then you started that evolution away from the Republican Party. Is there a time or event that you can remember?
Yeah, there were a couple. I mean, I had some concerns even as far back as the Tea Party days where I saw some things that at first I was like, well, no, this is really just about taxes and people are mad and we don't want government run healthcare, all the things during the Obamacare era. I was like, okay. But then I started to see some things that made me uncomfortable when it came to immigration and some of the language that was being used. And I'm an immigration hawk. I worked on border security issues when I worked in Capitol Hill. I was a communications director, but I had a legislative portfolio because of my law enforcement family background. I always had an interest in that. And I actually was like the Erin Brockovich of a case during my time on Capitol Hill concerning two Border Patrol agents down in Texas who were, in my opinion, were unjustly prosecuted for a shooting of an illegal alien drug smuggler carrying $1 million worth of drugs. And they thought he had a weapon. They shot him. They shot him in his ass. He got away. And he went to Mexico and complained. I know, it was crazy. It was called the Ramos and Compian, Agent Ramos and Jose Compian. Those were the agents. And the guy ended up having a cousin who worked in the Border Patrol who said, you can complain. They violated your civil rights. And he came back and our government actually gave this guy immunity to testify against the agents. It was crazy. This was back in like 2006, 2007 time. And I saw the case come across my desk. I said, something doesn't smell right here. And it turned into a 2.5-year crusade to get these guys commuted or pardoned by President George Bush. So at the time, I had no problem going against my own party when I thought that it was the right thing to do. And that experience was really, really telling for me, and eye-opening, and a personal accomplishment of mine that I'm very proud of, because after 2.5 years and a huge cause celeb in conservative circles, President George W. Bush did commute them on his final day in office. And I made a promise to one of the agents that I would walk him out of prison a free man. And I had the opportunity to do that. And I'm grateful for that opportunity, and that the congressman I worked for at the time gave me carte blanche to do what we needed to do to get these guys out of prison. And we were able to do that. So I learned very early on that when you believe strongly in something, you don't have to be part of the tribe. You do what's right. And during that experience, though, I saw some things that made me a little uncomfortable with how people were approaching immigration, a bit of a lack of humanity there, because it's a very complicated issue. It's multi-layered. And so that was the first time where I was kind of like, Fast forward to the Trump era. After I left the Hill and I was on CNN for years, I was a CNN political commentator, and they had hired me as a Republican voice because they didn't really have one that looked or sounded like me. And so that was a great opportunity in 2014, 2015, way before Trump. I never would have expected that I would have become a prolific never Trump voice on national television, one of the first in the Trump era. It was nuts. Nobody saw that coming. But the next time that I kind of was going, wait, what's happening, was when people started making excuses for Donald Trump's behavior during the 2016 campaign. People I've known for years, people who knew better, people who didn't actually believe what they were saying. Because I would be in the rooms with them off camera or in DC at the Capitol Hill Club or with my friends on the Hill, and they would tell me that their bosses couldn't stand Donald Trump and what a terrible guy he is. But, we can't have Hillary. And I was like, guys, seriously? No, come on. Then I was like, okay, they're just being political opportunists. Politics is an ugly sport, as you know, Denver. There's a lot of immorality.
Yeah,
it's really ugly. My husband says all the time, like, I don't know how you put up with it. But when he got elected, and I gave a pass to a lot of folks because they didn't truly fully appreciate what a disaster he would be. And they just didn't like Hillary, right? The 30 years of demonizing the Clintons really had an impact on a lot of Republican voters. And people were naive. They thought that Trump would grow into the job. Like I said, I'm from Jersey. I grew up watching Donald Trump screw things up and what a disaster he was in Atlantic City and how he screwed over contractors and bankrupted casinos and what a joke he was. He was a joke to us in the tri-state area. This guy wasn't serious. But years and years of being beamed into people's homes on The Apprentice and creating this facade of being this successful businessman, he wasn't Hillary. People said, we'll give him a chance. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. Well, it was. The final straw where I stopped giving people grace when it came to Trump was Charlottesville. That was it. I mean, we had, before that was the Comey firing. That was a problem for me as someone, like I said, who's into law enforcement and respects the rule of law. I saw that as a huge problem. But Charlottesville, that was it for me. When Donald Trump went out there and made excuses for neo-Nazis marching with tiki torches through Charlottesville,
Amen.
Chanting "Jews will not replace us," and he went out there and said, well, there were good people on both sides. A woman was killed. There are not good people on both sides of that issue. I'm sorry. And people did not, they made excuses for him. People who knew better in the Republican Party. And at that point, I said, you know what? I don't know. I almost quit the party then. But friends like Michael Steele, who's been a longtime friend and mentor to me for over 20 years, he said, listen, we can't let them run us out. Somebody's got to be there to keep, somebody sane has to keep the party together during this time. And I said, okay. So I hung on through those years, but there were multiple times. Charlottesville was the first where I was like, I can't. The next was shithole countries, when he went after immigrants of color and told them to go back to their shithole countries. Another was when he stood there in front of the world next to Vladimir Putin, an enemy of the United States, and said that he believed Vladimir Putin over our intelligence agencies in Helsinki. That was another time. Another time was when Donald Trump went after Gold Star families, and Republicans made excuses for that. I actually banged my hand on a table on a panel on CNN arguing over this when John Kelly was brought into it, and his son, who died in service, and they were trying to politicize that. And I very rarely do I ever lose it on TV. I lost it that day and told them to stop politicizing General Kelly's dead son. But there were several inflection points that were leading up to me finally leaving on November 5th. And why I did it then, why I stayed, was because I thought there was a chance, if there was a repudiation at the ballot box, that there'd be a chance for us to redeem the party. But once Donald Trump refused to concede the election and gave that horrifically offensive speech from the East Wing of the White House on election night, and all of those pocket-waving, Constitution-waving, sanctimonious Republicans did not say enough is enough, like now we're talking about a constitutional crisis, they let him get away with it, I said, that's it. There is no saving this party now. And then obviously January 6th happened, and that's its own thing.
It's so funny that you talk about the cascading effect of things that happened to you, Tara, because, I called myself the new Republican, right? I thought I could be a new Republican. And you think you could almost keep your shoulder against the door as the crazies are trying to crawl out of the basement.
Yes.
And you know what the image that I had when you were talking is like you were trying to stop the zombies from coming over the wall in World War Z.
Yes.
And you thought, oh, we can do this. Our wall is tall enough and we have enough armament to do that. But the zombies keep coming, right?
Yes.
They're mindless. And
example.
you get to the point, you're like, well, they're going to eat my throat. Like, if I don't get out of here. But Charlottesville was in my district, as you know.
That's right.
And it's amazing because I'd written a op-ed against white. I think I was the only Republican candidate to write an op-ed against white supremacy and white nationalists during that election cycle, which ended up getting me attacked, for Bigfoot erotica, by the way. So, for doing that. So, as you know, I have a very exciting life also. But looking at what you went through, boom, 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 you're holding your shoulder against the door, thinking that somehow you're going to make a difference. But you talked about the lack of morality, especially after November 3rd. I think that's the thing that was so shocking to me. I think to the Adam Kinzingers of the world also.
Yes.
Is that how do you square that? If you're an evangelical or you're self-identified as a Christian or you're self-identified as a conservative who believes in limited government but also is a strong constitutionalist, you can't square it. There's no way to square that. There's no intellectual exercise that you could do to square being what a traditional GOP would define themselves as, a GOPer, and what Donald Trump is. There's no squaring that. But now, gosh, I know we've had this talk in private, so I'm just going to go there. I mean, are we too far gone? I mean, is the sane in the last bar fight? Are we, are the reality-based individuals, is the pro-reality army wheezing and gasping on the last bit of oxygen, or do we still have a chance? Right. And that's what I want to ask you right now, because I know we had this talk over bourbon and we've had this talk over on rye. Do we still have a chance outside of the confines of our liquor talks? Do we still have a chance?
So I know you and I have gone back and forth on this, and I've had to sometimes boost you and you have to boost me. Sometimes we have to tell each other, no, it's going to be all right. No, look, I still believe firmly that there are more of us than there are of them. The difference, though, is that they are a lot more vocal and motivated and organized. And that's where my work has come in over the last few years, trying to inform the sane people out there and explain what the stakes are. Because the other side, the crazies, only win if we are deflated, defeated, dissuaded, and throw our hands up and go, it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. Look at what's happening, blah, blah, blah. No, your vote matters. Every single thing that we do to protect democracy, to protect our election systems, to make sure that those crazies are not voted into power or we can vote them out of power, it all rests on us, because democracy is an active thing. It doesn't protect itself. Democracy does not protect itself. It requires an informed and engaged citizenry to make sure that it continues. And when you have someone like Donald Trump, who's become this really bizarre cult leader, because that's what it is now. I started calling Trump and the Republicans a cult in 2018, way before a lot of other people did. As a matter of fact, I got into a pretty spirited argument with Meghan McCain on The View when I was on The View with her in 2018 for calling the Trumpists a cult.
No. Besides him, it's a cult that way.
But
that's when I said that before.
Please stop saying that.
No, I'm not going to stop saying that, because when people align, let me explain. It's why I say that.
The last time
I did, and I stand by
to people like me.
It's not everyone, but there's a large group of people who blindly follow what this man says that don't think for themselves, where he actually can get away with saying things on tape and turn around and say this is fake news now. That is a cult. That's a cult.
And she got all up in arms about it, because she's married to a guy that's part of the right-wing echo chamber.
Absolutely.
And I was I was really taken aback by her, given her dad's position and how Trump disrespected him and his legacy. And I was like, really, honey? But okay, you want to take that position? That's on you. I'm sticking to my guns here. It's a freaking cult. When Donald Trump goes out there and tells people, don't believe what you're seeing on video or on audio, it's a cult. Like, stop. So anyway. But that all became something that was like, people need to realize that when you have a motivated minority, they can cause a lot of problems, because they suck the oxygen out of the room. And then you have people who have been waiting around, these like political nerds who have been waiting since they were like in junior high school boys state to try to manipulate the Constitution or the government to their way, because they've been rejected by society. So now it's like our term. It's like the short guy in high school that becomes a cop because he couldn't get a date, right? Yeah. It's like that. And now you've got the Stephen Millers and these rejects of the world that are smart. I mean, you can say what you want about them, but they know our system and they're looking at ways, John Eastman and all these people looking at ways to manipulate our system, catching the rest of us asleep at the switch with lack of imagination of what they can do. Because our system and our founding fathers, they didn't imagine this part. They were worried about a monarchy. They were worried about an imperialist president. That's why we have all these checks and balances. But they were counting on the fact that our citizens, that we, the people, would have enough sense to do the right thing and put honorable people in these positions. That's not happening now in Trumpism. Republicans have abdicated every aspect of their oath of office. They have. And Trump has gotten more and more emboldened. So do I have hope that we can stop this? Absolutely. Because I firmly believe there are more of us sane folks than there are of them. But it's incumbent upon us and those of us who have platforms to explain the stakes, motivate people, and we have to get out there and defend it. Because it's not going to defend itself. So I think as long as people start to wake up and realize that apathy is not an option, we'll be fine.
Well,
but it takes work, though. It'll take work. It does.
But you've seen so many people flip to coward pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So, and you know, and that's the other thing too. When you have a motivated minority, I always tell people that crazy has a lot more energy than sanity.
Yep, it can.
You know, now, of course, sometimes they eat their own tail. If you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene now, right, she's gone into a schizophrenic death spin, right? And I don't know if she can get herself out of it.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer person.
Oh no, it's unbelievable. You know, today she had a hat that she put on an effigy or on a cardboard cutout of Mike Johnson that said "Make Ukraine Great Again," MUGA.
Oh my God!
To try to say that we're propping up a regime in Ukraine, that's a bunch of Nazis. She either believes that and she's a moron, or she's cynical and she's a moron. I think it's one or the other.
Well, I think we all can agree she's a freaking moron.
I think that's it, right?
Right? She's a moron and she's a useful idiot. And, this is the same person who, that was another time, like another thing where I'm like, folks, what are we doing here? Voting these people into office. This is why you need to get rid of closed primaries, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Oh, amen.
Right? But like, she's the same person who is a QAnon conspiracy theorist that literally believed that there was like this cabal of Hollywood celebrities drinking the blood of children to stay, to live longer. Like she believed this crazy shit. And
I'm 137. I'm 137 years old, so I can tell you that, a lot of the actual adrenochrome works pretty well.
It's Sasquatch blood for you.
It's a little bit of a different conspiracy theory, right? That gets a little hairy when we talk about that, though. But no, so I think so. Okay, this another because I've heard you, I've watched you so many times, but this question, is I don't know. I hope you answered, but if you had, besides Trump, if you had to look at the person that scares you the most or a group of people that scares you the most around Trump, I want to take congressional representatives out of it. Okay, because we can talk about Congress all day long, me and you. But if there's somebody,
separate problem.
It is a whole separate problem. Yes, that is a compendium of morons. But if you look on the other side, or if you look who's around Trump, Trump is old. He's been blabbering lately. There is some kind of cognitive decline that we're watching in real time with Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So with
just
Trump,
like his father, it runs the family.
Just like his father, absolutely. That's an excellent point. But is there somebody around Trump that you think maybe has the ability to take the mantle? Is there one, two, or three? Because I know you think about all these individuals. There's one, two, or three of these people that you think could take the mantle for Trump, or during a Trump administration, if he were to win, that we would really have to watch out for, especially me and you, and people like us. Who are those people or that person that you really have your eye on?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any one person that can take the mantle from Trump. He's his own special kind of freaking crazy, right? He has a certain appeal that I'm not sure there's one person that can replicate that. But he's done so much damage to this country and to our institutions that I firmly believe it's going to be a generational fight to exorcise our country from the ilk of MAGA. It's not going to be over even when we defeat him in November because of all of the acolytes and the wannabes that have risen to the top. And it's people like the evil geniuses, like I was saying to you before. There's these group of people that have been on the fringes for so long because they weren't allowed into the club because they were nuts and we were all sane. And they were like, yeah, you guys are going to stay over there and have your own little, cacophony of kookery parties over there. Now they've been mainstreamed in a major political party in this country. People like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a problem. I don't know why he's not in jail. Like he should be in federal prison for the rest of his life, but he's not yet. He spends 4 hours a day blabbering into this War Room podcast, spreading all kinds of horrible things, riling up people. And the lowest common denominator is now becoming mainstream. And get that January 6th and the Christian nationalists and all of those people who were never accepted into mainstream anything are now running the Republican Party. So the people like that have the ability to motivate millions of people to decide they want to go storm, or thousands to go storm the Capitol and think that that was a rational decision, those people scare me, because there is a vast right-wing ecosystem now that we have the internet and, streaming like this, where everyone can have a platform. You can't control information really anymore. The information flow, disinformation and misinformation is rampant, and they know how to manipulate that. Steve Bannon brags about being a Leninist. Like, he wants to see it all burned down. So you've got those kind of guys. Then you have these Stephen Millers. I brought him up before. This guy is the worst. Terrible. But he's really smart. And he's out here trying to manipulate the system and find the pressure points where they can manipulate it to get what they want. The groups that wrote Project 2025, Mike Roman and those guys, everyone needs to read the Time magazine article, the cover article that Trump just did that was released this week. It's lengthy, but it's worth the read.
I just read it today.
Remember I told you yesterday you got to read it, right?
And I did it.
Now, we all know about the intent that Trump has if he were to get reelected, God forbid. He can't pull this off without people around him. And he's surrounding himself with these people because January 6th and what they did in the last year of his administration was just a practice run for what they want to do. There are no guardrails anymore if he gets elected again. He's not going to have the John Kellys or the General Millies or other sane people around him to stop him from doing the worst of the worst, stop him from invoking the Insurrection Act, or stop him from using the military to set up concentration camps in America, or stop him from trying to shut down the free press. You're not going to have those people there anymore. He said his biggest regret in that Time story was he was, quote, too nice. Really? Mr. American Carnage in 2016 thinks he was too nice? Did we see what happened during the George Floyd protests? Is that the America we want? Well, that's the America Donald Trump and his acolytes want. And we need to make sure that people fully understand he's telling us what they want to do and surrounding himself with these no-names to help him implement it. So those are the types of people that worry me the most.
So what you're saying is the coalition of the sane is against the cacophonous club of kooks. I think that's the war that we have. And by the way,
say that 3 times fast.
Yes, yeah, and and Steve Bannon is his own communicable disease, right? I mean, he's right. If there's a communicable disease in human form, it's Steve Bannon. But but no, I think that just having you on here was amazing. You are definitely an OG charter member of the coalition of the sane, and I just love that you came on. And thank you so much, Tara. And if there's one thing that you would want to end with, what is the one thing, what is the one incisive throat punch that you like to do to folks to get them to wake the hell up as we end this incredible show?
Oh, thank you. I try to end things on, like I said, on a positive note. I want people to have hope. Don't throw your hands up. It's not over yet, but do not lack imagination of what these people want to do to our country. Whether it's taking rights away from women, we're seeing this happen. People could never imagine that Roe v. Wade would have been overturned, or that you would see states going back to, partying like it's 1864 again when it comes
Florida.
to. Right. Look at Florida. The 6-week abortion ban is taking effect. Most women don't even know they're pregnant then. Whatever side of the issue you're on that, personally, as a public policy, you cannot expect women and force women into being a second-class citizen when it comes to their bodily autonomy. It's just, it cascades from there, because now it's not only about abortion, it's about IVF, people who want to have families. Look what happened in Alabama. It's about birth control. Look what's happening in Texas. It's about criminalizing doctors. Look at Idaho. Doctors are afraid to treat women. Women are bleeding out in lobbies of emergency rooms because doctors are afraid to perform life-saving measures on them for fear of being prosecuted. That's just one example of what the policy fallout can be if people do not pay attention and actively go out there and vote, get other people around you to vote, and make sure that those folks are not in power, because democracy doesn't defend itself. It requires every one of us to be generals in that army to protect it. So that's my word. That's what I'm saying to folks. The policies of like, you're arguing over marginal tax rates, or you don't like the student loan relief, or, there's the gas prices are a little too high, or inflation hasn't come down enough. None of that shit matters, people, if we lose our democracy. None of it. Gaza and in the protests and what's happening there, whatever side you're on of that, you'll never see a free protest again, because Donald Trump will invoke the Insurrection Act, and no one will ever be able to freely express how they feel on no matter what side they're on. These are things that are real. They're telling us what they want to do, and we've got to put it in perspective. We can fight out all those other things later, but the most important thing is to make sure that we still have a republic where we the people, make the determination that we can still be a free people and have that pursuit of happiness. So it's up to us.
My gosh, the OG Tara Setmayer. I think if I would sum it up, get off your ass, become a member of the Coalition of the Sane, and join the pro-reality army. That's what we're going to do. Tara, you are the best. Thank you so much, ma'am. Catch you on the flip, and I know we're going to be talking soon. So thank you.
Denver.
You are amazing.
I love you, my friend. Keep up the great work.
See ya.